Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I'm Bill. We are in the fantasy trip book, In the Labyrinth by Steve Jackson's Games for this video. This is the continuation of the spells video. We are now going to look at the IQ 9 spells for In the Labyrinth and read what they are and what all they do. So without further ado, let's dive into them. The first spell on the list is Aid. It's a thrown spell. So it uses all the rules for throwing weapons. Temporarily adds 1 to strength, dex, or IQ of any figure, including the wizard himself, for each strength point or mana, in the case how I refer to it, the wizard uses to cast it. Lasts 2 turns. If strength is given to another figure, for instance to allow another wizard to cast a spell with a very high strength cost or mana cost, that strength or mana must be used within 2 turns or it is lost. Avert. It's a thrown spell. It's a defensive spell. When a wizard throws Avert on a victim, the victim must end his movement at least 2 hexes further from the wizard than he started. Each turn the spell is on. A victim who cannot move away without running into something or falling into a river or chasm must take his saving roll 3 dice against his adjusted dex to avoid falling down. A figure which cannot move 2 hexes due to being engaged must move as far away as it can, even if it has to disengage. Costing 2 strength to cast plus 1 strength per turn it is maintained. So it costs 2 mana plus 1 mana per turn you maintain it. Clumsiness. It's a thrown spell. Subtract 2 from the victim's dex for every 1 mana the wizard uses to throw the spell. Lasts 3 turns. 1 turn if the victim's strength is 30 or more. So if you're using it on a giant, it'll only last 1 turn. Or at least most giants. Confusion. It's a thrown spell. Subtract 2 from the victim's IQ for every 1 mana the wizard uses to throw the spell. Lasts 3 turns. A figure whose IQ is reduced by a confusion spell cannot use high IQ spells while confused to a level lower than the IQ required for the spell, but can re-energize spells already cast. So if your wizard's IQ from this drops to below casting the spell, but he already has one active, he can maintain it. He just couldn't cast that level until this spell ends. Dark Vision. It's a thrown spell. Gives subject the ability to see normally, even in total dark, for 1 hour. Note to the GMs. In the Labyrinth adventuring, you may make this 1 hour on your own watch, rather than keep track of that many turns. Strength cost is 3, so mana cost is 3. This spell does not penetrate invisibility, magically induced shadows, etc. That is left for the mage sight. Darkness has an S in it, so it's a specific location. Extinguishes all artificial lights, including light spells, within its range. Does not affect light from sources outside its range. Range is 1 megahex from the wizard's megahex for every mana point used to cast it. So in D&D, think of that as a megahex being 15 feet. It's three hexes across, so it'd be 3 squares across. Duration is 3 turns, can be extended past that time, whatever its range, for 1 mana per turn. Example, wizard wishes to cast darkness in a 3 megahex area from his own megahex for 4 turns. It costs 3 mana to cast the spell and 1 more to hold it for the 4th turn. If the wizard is killed or goes unconscious, the darkness lifts. The wizard can limit the darkness effect to a part of that area, even to having it hit 1 torch among dozens if he wishes. Torches, lights, etc. come back to life when the spell ends. Detect life has an S in it, so it's another area specific. When this spell is successfully cast, again, the GM makes an adjusted dex roll. It tells the wizard whether there are any living beings, except members of his party, within 2 megahexes of the megahex he is in. Basic mana cost is 2. Range can be increased by 1 megahex in all directions for each additional mana the wizard puts into it. The wizard may, if he wishes, make the spell directional and look at only 1 hex or only 1 megahex within the spell's range. He may also look for one kind of life, example orcs. If the GM misses the roll, he says you sense nothing living, regardless whether there is actually any life about. Note: germs, flies, etc. don't count. Large plants do, so this spell is less useful in a forest. Fire. It's a C spell, so it's a concentration spell. Fills 1 hex with a magical flame. Effect of the flames are: no creature of less than IQ 8 will pass through or stay in it. Animals are afraid of fire. An illusion, of course, could pass through. A figure who moves through a fire hex or is in a hex when the wizard creates the fire takes 2 points of damage. A figure which moves into a fire hex and stops to attack, for instance, takes 4 points of damage and suffers a -2 dex that turn. The effect of fire hexes are cumulative within a turn, but armor and protective spells do work. Example: a figure moves through 2 fire hexes for 4 damage and stops in a third one to attack for 4 more damage. The protection given by the figure's armor and spells are taken from the total of 8 points of damage to see how many actual damage the figure took from the fire. The damage taken as soon as the protection is used up. If the figure, for example, had stone flesh, stopping 4 damage, but no other armor, he would suffer no damage for the first 2 hexes. However, these would also use up the protection, and upon stopping in the 3rd hex, he would take 4 damage. The stone flesh would still take 4 damage off of any other attacks that turn. The damage resets each turn, so a heavily armored or protected figure could stand in the flames unharmed. A wizard may also use a spell to produce controlled fire in his own or an adjacent hex. He could light his own cigar, a friend's torch, or an enemy's beard. Mana cost to use fire in any fashion is 1 mana. Look Your Best. This is a thrown spell. This spell is not only subjects you to a minor glamour, it also really cleans you up and makes you stand up straight and smile. Unless you are a bandit leader or something, in which case it strategically applies dirt and enhances your strutting and skulling. This spell will give a +2 to a casual reaction roll and a +1 to a roll in any situation where the subject really has to interact with individuals. At that point, talk is required rather than just perfect hair or the right tattoos. Cost 1 mana for 1 hour plus 1 mana per additional hour. Reveal Magic. This is an S, so it's an area. A spell which may be used by a wizard during combat to find out what secret protective spells or devices his foes may be using. Will let wizards see any or all of the following spells within 5 megahexes, whether they have just been cast or are properties of magical items being actively used by the foe. Avert, Shock Shield, Reverse Missiles, Eyes Behind, Fireproofing, Stone Flesh, Iron Flesh, Fresh Air, Spell Shield, Unnoticeability, Blast Trap, Shock Shield, Shape-Shifting, Mage Sight, Dark Vision, and Hammer Touch. Will also reveal any amulets worn by any objects presently giving immunity to any specific sort of spell. Note, this spell will not pick up on a magic item that is not powered at the moment. It will always pick up on an always-on sort of item. It will never tell a caster that the item of the foes is magical, just that there are protections there. When the spell is cast, it will automatically reveal any slippery floors or sticky floors within 5 megahexes of the figure who cast it. Cost to cast this spell is 1 mana plus 1 each turn it is renewed. Summon Scout. This is a concentration or a conjuration. Brings a rat or any other small mammal as the wizard chooses to spy or scout. Casters can see through its eyes. Its other senses are also available, though the wizard will not understand everything that a rat smells or a bat hears and may interpret those senses as vision. Depending on the surroundings, a squirrel, rabbit, scum bunny might also be a good choice. Will also bring a bat, but not a bird. Costs 1 plus 1 for every minute the spell is continued. Summon Wolf. Brings a wolf. The wolf stats are Strength 10, Dex 14, IQ 6, Movement Allowance 12. Its bite does 1d6 plus 1 damage, and its fur stops 1 damage. To follow a wizard's order. See Summon Creatures if you want more detail. Costs 2 mana to cast it, plus 1 mana each turn the wolf remains. Turn Missiles. This is a thrown spell. Causes any missile spell or missile or thrown weapon aimed at the spell's subject to automatically miss and fly past the target. The attacker must then roll to hit or miss, if he chooses, other figures in a straight line behind the spell's subject. 1 mana to cast and 1 to continue. And that is the last of the IQ 9 spells. The next video in this series will be IQ 10 spells. Let me know what you all thought of the spells that are now available to wizards with an IQ 8 and IQ 9. I'd like to hear that in the comments below. Until we all game again, guys.